Hey, welcome everybody. Welcome to Unauthorized Caucus. It is Thursday. It's caucus time, and I'm glad you're here with me. My name is Ryan Height, and I'm going to be flying solo here today. So I'm grateful that you're here with me. Mason is out today. He is out sick, got a sore throat, told him to rest up his voice. And we've got a good schedule going of some content coming down the pike. So we're going to push that off a week here. And I'm not going to tackle one of those topics alone. But there is something that I wanted to talk about today. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And I've got a little bit of a different setup here. I didn't want to put on the lapel mic. So I've been doing some radio stuff in filling in for Ed Martin here on the Pro America Report. So I've got all the radio gear out. So I figured I would hook it up and come to you today this way, and we'll sit and talk. But before we get into that, I know I got a few people here joining, letting folks come in and come on into the chat room, get in there and start asking some questions or putting out some topics, because I'm going to hit a couple of things today. I've got something I want to talk about, and as we get into it, I'd love to hear your feedback. So sound off down there. Hey, Phyllis from Southern California piping in there. Glad you're with us. And yeah, we'll get going here. And I want to hear your thoughts on what we're going to talk about today. But before we do, let me remind you, just like we do every week, go over to phyllisschlafly.com, sign up for the email list. Of course, wherever you are, hit the like, share, and subscribe button. If you're on YouTube or Rumble, make sure and share this link with a friend. Let them know that this conversation is going on. And even though it's a little bit less of a conversation, it's just you and me today, and we'll go that direction. It is still something I think is going to be worthwhile, something I'd like to really dive into today and hit a few points and maybe bring this up. And again, we'll see if you've got something to pipe in there, jump into the chat and make sure that you get into the conversation, because I think that there's an incredibly important thing going on that we should all understand what exactly is happening, where this is going, what it means for us as conservatives inside our sphere of influence. So we'll get to that today. But in the meantime, I am going to have a lot of links today that I'm going to be sending. So make sure you go over to phyllisschlafly.com, get on the email list. If you're not yet, there's a little banner that pops down on the top of that website, and we'll let you get signed up. Don't miss it. Go do it. Go do it now. Well, maybe not now, but right after we're done, because I'm going to send that email a little bit later this afternoon. But welcome, and thank you for being here. Glad you're with us, and we will dive right into it. We had a topic set for today. I was reading and researched up on it, but then Mason succumbed to a little fall cold, which I know a lot of us are experiencing as temperature swings and it gets colder here across the country in different places. But that's okay. We've got a lot to talk about, and a lot that happened this week, a lot that happened in the last couple of weeks. So we will go ahead and dive right in. I've got a lot of different links open here. We're going to kind of sort this out and try to go in a similar fashion. But what I want to do is, I think that we're at a very unique moment in time. My head moment in American history that needs to be understood. And I think that today, what I want to do is pull in some old references, some historic stuff that I think is very important and relevant. And then we're going to equate that to a few of the things we heard last night in the debate. Because the reality is, and I say we heard, you may not have watched the debate. I hadn't actually watched the debate live. I've been watching clips of it. But I think that there's an incredibly important thing to understand. And it was on display last night. Again, you've heard Mason and I talk before about our thoughts on the presidential race right now. At this point, it is Trump's to lose. I think he has the commanding lead, and I believe that that's very justified. I think that he has proven he is willing to go in and, maybe not get the whole laundry list of things that I want done, but go in and shake things up, be a disruptor to the system. Excuse me as I stumble over my words. There's a lot of information bouncing around here on my screens and in my brain. We've got a lot going on. I just get overly excited about it, but I'm glad that we're here to share it today. So let's get into it. I think that there is a very important thing that we need to understand about the conversation inside the Republican Party, inside the conservative movement today. And there are two very different conversations happening. I think there's a huge disconnect that we need to understand. And you and I have the opportunity to be on the cutting edge of understanding where that goes correctly, where the right conversation to be happening is, and I'm going to stop being so vague here. We'll get right into it. I did if you heard it, you've got a little bit of a window into what we're going to talk about. But yesterday I was able to take over Ed's radio program, and we used the first segment to talk about some of the new polling numbers that RFK Jr. has. In case you hadn't seen it, just the bottom line version is he dropped out of the Democrat primary and is running as an independent now for president. So new polling numbers show, and I've got this link, I'll put it in the notes here in the email. New polling numbers show from Quinnipiac that he is getting 22% of the vote against a Biden and Trump three-way matchup. Now, of course, we know poll numbers don't necessarily mean anything. Polls are really easy to manipulate. Polls are often wrong. It really depends on how you do the numbers. I mean, there is a scientific way to take a small sampling of people and make it representative of the whole country. But the reality here is, even this Quinnipiac poll, it has spoken to 1,600 Americans. So we're talking about 1,600 out of tens of millions of votes that will be cast. It's not exactly scientific from the get-go, but you can do a little bit better than others. But one thing that we can almost always extrapolate out of polls, even if the numbers are wrong or we don't trust them or whatever it is, we can almost always extrapolate trends. And this is a very interesting trend to see an independent for the first time in a long time taking away 22% of the vote. I think that, and again, this isn't a declaration of support for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. or anything like that. I have a lot of problems with his policies and his political stances and positions. But the trend that we're seeing, what's happening is a very sharp turn away from the two major parties as they exist now. Now, I don't necessarily have a problem with political parties, although we're going to get into what our founding fathers thought about that. But I think that it's inarguable at this point. We talk enough about the uniparty, the deep state, the establishment, the kingmakers, whatever name you want to put on it. There is a group of people, no matter if it's an R or a D or an I or a G, the Green Party, the Libertarian, the Constitution. There are very well, and I mean not so much with the later ones, but there is a very strong sentiment across all of America that it doesn't matter what the letter is behind this politician's name, this candidate running for office. The question is, are you for we the people, or are you trying to become one of we the powerful? Are you looking to authentically represent the citizens of America to be a part of this representative republic that we have? Or are you looking to go and become a part of the power structure and the ruling class that accumulates wealth and influence to themselves? And that's really the division, the distinction that we're seeing here. And that is one of the reasons this whole drain the swamp mentality. It's very interesting. This is where I see that you have two different versions of it. I think two very clear, different ways to look, two very different debates that were happening about the debate last night. The people who understand that moment that we are in of drain the swamp, that real battle that has set up in America of we the people versus they the powerful, or someone who is stuck still in the old school version of left versus right, liberal versus conservative, not so much freedom versus leftism, authoritarian versus liberty. This is the battle that's set up. And a lot of people haven't made that leap and don't quite understand it, which is why you see a lot of folks getting into the weeds talking about Nikki Haley's performance versus Tim Scott versus this versus that. And a lot of the rest of us look back and say, who cares? Donald Trump has already won the primary, but these people are so out of touch. Do you not see that? Oh, well, there was a very interesting position that was stated. No, it's the white, like Dan, and I see someone here in Rumbles talking about Dan Bongino, and his diagnosis, the four parties in America. I tend to agree quite a bit with Dan, and I think that Dan Bongino was talking about this in his debate wrap up. Is that there are these two different conversations: people who seem in touch with what's going on, and people who seem completely out of touch, as if the white papers that some of these folks are putting out about very in-depth foreign policy matters, not that they don't matter, they do, but as if that's what people are looking at, that's what's on the top of most people's concern list, and the reality is it's not. Pardon me. The reality is people are looking around saying there is a ruling class in DC, in the state governments across the country that is taking advantage of us, that is putting us into the ground, that is just absolutely bleeding the American family dry and destroying the economy. And this has to be stopped. We must stop this. and we can work out some of the more detailed and specific policy things secondary to what's happening right now. This battle royale over the very government itself, the weaponized use of government against its own citizens, the expression of our political speech or not having that at all. These are the things that are just, it's kind of shocking to see people who are out of touch with that when you are. And I'm sure that it's very shocking for some folks who don't realize that's the era we're in, to look at those of us who are um, were awakened. I don't want to use the term woke, but those of us who've red pilled and say, what are you crazy people talking about? And it's a very interesting disconnect that I think we need to be aware of and learn how to overcome, because I run across that. I run across people who still seem to think that it's 2004. What did I say? I saw Matt Walsh tweeted that this morning, that something to the effect of Nikki Haley is an incredibly effective candidate and one of the top contenders in 2004. And I had to laugh because it's true. I'm like, where are we stuck in 2004? Do you not remember 2016, 2020, 2022? All of the stuff that has happened has drastically changed the field, the dynamics of American politics. And there are a lot of folks who have not made that leap in understanding yet. And that's okay. It's not up to us to be frustrated. It's up to us to help people into that understanding. So let's talk about a little bit of that just for a minute here. I don't want to go on too long today. Obviously, it's just me. I don't want you to be stuck here listening to just one voice. But I have a few things I want to pull in. So we talked about the polling numbers and what this means, that this may be a moment in which the American populace is starting to move away from this drastic loyalty to a two-party system, because we know that this has just played this two-party system, this two-party divide has played into the hands of the polarizing that the left wants to do. And we could go down an entire worldview training session alone on this one thing. In fact, thank you all for bearing with us last week. I know we had a pre-recorded and then we were sitting watching the chat, but I was out teaching a class, and actually part of that class talking about news and media journalism, and it had to go inevitably into a worldview discussion about Marxism, specifically about cultural Marxism, because that good old timey, bourgeoisie versus the proletariat, the working economic class and workers of the world unite, that just hasn't worked in America. So what we've done is seen this modern neo-Marxist leftist movement take those Marxist theories that demand for creating an oppressor and the oppressed, these victim status groups, blocks of oppressed peoples, and applied it to culture, applied it to all of the institutions across America, the family, church, school, education, that they could apply it to. And it really hasn't been the traditional communist economic arguments that we have contended with and really, frankly, have lost to in America over the last 50, 60, 70 years. It is this cultural application of Marxism. And when you look at this discussion, that dividing and polarizing and putting people into groups, that identity politics, it's very easy when you've got this big two-party system where you identify as red or blue. We've created this loyalty structure. And the founding fathers actually warned us against that. And I know this is a little bit of a different discussion, because you've heard us probably here at the Phyllis Schlafly Eagles talk against third party, against multi-party systems. That comes with its own worry of plurality versus majority. There's all kinds of stuff to talk about. There really is. But in this regard, this idea of loyalty to party first, that cannot ever supersede our obligation and duty and understanding of being Americans first, who are loyal to the Constitution and loyal to the principles that have established and kept sacred liberty here in America for all of these 250 years. Now, I know it feels like we're clinging on to it, but we'll speak hopefully here for a moment, you and I trust that you'll agree with me here in the end. But there's a great article kind of pulling out of this what these RFK poll numbers mean for this moment in America. Alex Newman, I know you all are very familiar with and a fan of probably as well. We have him on frequently. He's at our conferences. We talk to him, point to him. He is one of the big writers, the editor at the New American. He runs the Liberty Sentinel, and is a speaker and author, educator, former educator, and an incredible investigator into the truth of what's going on behind the scenes. And one of his folks, Andrew Muller, who I know you all are very familiar with. Andrew left us, left here the St. Louis area, went off to work for Alex. He's doing good stuff. Andrew posted a column this week talking about this RFK Jr. polling number, what it does to question party politics in America, and how we ought to follow George Washington's advice. He got pulled a couple of great quotes I want to read to you here. I'm going to include this in the links, and then we're going to switch over to a quick conversation about last night before we close out. That's the direction we're headed here. And again, you have something you want to bring up into this. I see some folks over here on Rumble. Slide into the chat. Bring up some points, ask some questions. I know it's just me today. We're not having a back and forth conversation. I promise we'll get back there next week. But in lieu of Mason being out this week, I wanted to talk about this. Here's something very interesting to note from George Washington's farewell address, September 17, 1796, something you should go and read in its entirety. It's well worth it. One of, in my opinion, the great political speeches of our nation's history. One thing that Washington noted, he says, quote, however, political parties may now and then answer popular ends. They are likely, in the course of time and things, to become potent engines by which cunning, ambitious, and unprincipled men will be enabled to subvert the power of the people and usurp for themselves the reins of government, destroying afterwards the very engines which have lifted them to unjust dominion. Wow. A vehicle, a potent engine by which cunning and ambitious and unprincipled people have enabled themselves to subvert the power of the people, to usurp the reins of government. John Adams had a similar diagnosis on these problems. He said, quote, there is nothing which I dread so much as a division of the republic into two great parties, each arranged under its leader and concerting measures in opposition to each other. This, in my humble apprehension, is to be dreaded as the greatest political evil under our Constitution. These are pretty strong words when this polarized identity as party first becomes a bedrock of American politics. And I would say we're there. That's definitely, we've been there for some time now. The reds and the blues, the left and the right, not understanding these terms in ideological or in principle definitions, but just in terms of teams. With paraphernalia, we've got our elephants and our Democrats, all of it. And you know, don't get me wrong, I consider myself a Republican. I have a strong attachment to the Republican Party platform. I work inside local Republican politics. I've worked inside national Republican politics. I think that it is an important part. I agree with Phyllis, being a part of that party structure to enact change and make sure you change from the ground up in America, our political system. It is helpful, but at the same time, it also can be one of the greatest curses. And I think that we have reached a point where that is inevitably what is happening to us. This division along party lines, rather than being loyal first to the Constitution, to liberty, to the founding principles that got us there, and then making sure that our political parties adhere to those ideologies or articulate themselves based upon those loyalties, not just loyalty to the party itself. We have lost that division, and I think it's time to seize a moment. I think that people are there. People are seeing that and realizing that it's bad. Hi there. I see one of our regulars is back over on YouTube. Thanks for being here. And I think that we're there. I think we're at a moment where it's time that we seize that discussion because people are ready. And here's why I say that. You want to look at something. I want to do some technology here today. Oh boy, technology. I want to play a couple of clips. And maybe just one clip. But in case you watched the debate last night, this is very interesting. I think that inarguably, Vivek Ramaswamy just ran away with the debate last night. Now, let me explain why, because this is certainly not an endorsement of him for president. I actually think that there's a lot of serious, he's been all over the place with some of his positions. It makes me question whether he actually understands some of these deep down to the smallest, even smaller, minute levels of conservative philosophy. But pardon me, even if he is just saying the things that he knows people want to hear, it is inarguable that he is saying stuff. And this is where we kind of go back to what we talked about in the beginning. There's two different conversations going on here. People who are stuck back in 2004 and those of us who've really kind of red pilled in the era of the Donald Trump pulling back the curtain on the deep state. And we look at the problems and understand we have a different set of problems. This is a whole different ballgame. And Vivek is the only one on the stage who really seems to address that. I think that DeSantis kind of has an idea of that, but he's just played so far back, cautiously on these debate stages, which I can't imagine why. There's been hardballs flying back and forth, especially last night, traded more barbs. Vivek is the only one who's really seeming to articulate that part of the discussion that we understand and agree with, where we are. This fight that we have against the modern authoritarian leftists. And instead of just trying to articulate a traditional pro-life position or a traditional foreign policy position or this or that or the other, Vivek is questioning the entire structure of why are we even here at this point? Why is no one saying how bad a job the Republican Party has done at sticking its neck out for people and articulating bold conservative plans? We keep losing elections. Why are we even here on the NBC network? Where are the people that ought to be moderating debates amongst conservatives? Who are these people? He asked the questions, and it was very, I mean, he went bold and just absolutely went by name after the moderators, after his fellow folks on stage. Let me just play a clip here, because he used one of his opening statements to just go for the heart of the failure at the RNC, the failure of using this apparatus of leftist media to begin with. And I think it's well worth listening to, because no one else on the stage seemed to articulate even the slightest hint of asking these questions. They were all staying inside this little 2004 box of articulating things. So let's go to it here. I want to play this quick video and then we'll come right back.
Swami, let me turn to you. Please make your case. Why would you, why should you be the nominee and not the former president?
I think there's something deeper going on in the Republican Party here, and I am upset about what happened last night. We've become a party of losers at the end of the day. It was a cancer in the Republican establishment. Let's speak the truth. I mean, since Ronna McDaniel took over as chairwoman of the RNC in 2017, we have lost 2018, 2020, 2022, no red wave that never came. We got trounced last night in 2023. And I think that we have to have accountability in our party. For that matter, Ron, if you want to come on stage tonight, you want to look the GOP voters in the eye and tell them you resign, I will yield my time to you. And frankly, look, the people there cheering for losing in the Republican Party. Think about who's moderating this debate. This should be Tucker Carlson, Joe Rogan, and Elon Musk. We'd have 10 times the viewership, asking questions that GOP primary voters actually care about and bringing more people into our party. You think the Democrats, and we've got Kristen Welker here, do you think the Democrats would actually hire Greg Gutfeld to host a Democratic debate? They wouldn't do it. And so the fact of the matter is, I mean, Kristen, I'm going to use this time because this is actually about you in the media and the corrupt media establishment. Ask you, the Trump-Russia collusion hoax that you pushed on this network for years, was that real, or was that Hillary Clinton made up disinformation? Answer the question. Go.
Mr. Roberts.
This is how we get our country back. We need accountability, because this media rigged the 2016 election. They rigged the 2020 election with the Hunter Biden laptop story.
Mr. Ramaswamy,
and they're going to rig this election.
Your time is up.
Accountability.
Let me turn to Governor Christie. Why
Yeah, let's turn to Governor Christie real quick, shall we? Shall we, Kristen and Lester? Oh, man. I tell you what, again, this isn't necessarily a discussion about Vivek and whether he actually understands all of the conservative principles, he's the best choice or anything. I'm not saying that at all. He was the only one who was not only asking the questions, the right questions, who was really putting forward this understanding of the American political playing field against, again, fill in the name, the deep state, the establishment, like Phyllis Schlafly called them in her seminal book, A Choice Not an Echo, right there on the shelf, the kingmakers. He was the only one articulating that argument. That is where we are. That is where American people are, distrusting of the swamp, wanting to drain the swamp. That's why Donald Trump won in 2016. That is why Trump was so popular throughout 2020. That is why Donald Trump is still, despite everything that they are doing to him throughout a corrupt and weaponized Department of Justice and judicial system, that is why he is still just trouncing everyone in the polls and gaining, even in blue states, in these big, not even swing states, just blue states, because people see an outsider who is not beholden to the traditional party system, who is not beholden to politics as usual, who says, wait, this is wrong. You are putting yourselves up in positions of power at the expense of the American people and shoving them down farther to climb higher up this system of enriching yourself and destroying everything that we have built, this freedom and this prosperity, in the wake of your own personal ambitions. And you even then are just a useful idiot, a middle manager for the people really dangling the strings here from the globalist elite, who are manipulating and trying to have the rise and fall of countries at their whim and will. That is where we are. And there was only one candidate on the stage having that debate last night. Everyone else was stuck in a debate from 20 years ago. And it really is a shocking difference to see and understand that there is a whole section of people who need to have that set of blinders pulled off. I think that's the job for you and me. I think that's where we are in 2023 America, in the 2023 conservative movement, that you and I need to understand how important it is that people not just come to the right side of the conclusion, they need to understand what the question even is to begin with. And I think that there are a lot of people who don't. So that is why I think it's so important to give some credence to the discussions, the actual entrance into the discussion of the RFKs of the world who want to break in from outside one of the two major party structures. Vivek to stand on the Republican Party debate stage. Not that I agree with these two individuals, but they are asking the right questions and they're willing to say things outside of the system, the business as usual, the politics as usual. And I think, and blasted Rana, to question the leaders of the party sitting there themselves. There was another, I wonder if I can even pull this up. There was a very interesting discussion that happened later on after the debate. I saw there was what looked pretty heated. It looked like with Vivek having a very heated exchange with Ronna McDaniel down in the front row of the debate stage. Let me see. I can pull this up right here. This is very interesting because he challenged authority. Let me pull this up. He challenged the status quo right in front of the status quo. I think that's the kind of thing that we need. Yeah, here we go. Let me pull this up here.
It looks like he's speaking now to Ronna McDaniel. Can't make her out exactly, but it looks like they may be having the exchange. Look, this was a big debate. Vivek came out. Can't make her out exactly, but it looks like they may be having the exchange. Look, this was a big debate. Vivek came out here. He attacked the moderators. He attacked the media. He attacked the RNC for setting up this debate the way it was. And for a lot of the debate,
he did. He went after the people there in the room. He kind of put aside, and there was no point at which I think that anything I saw there was mean or nasty or uncalled for or anything like that. I mean, he did have a little thing with Nikki Haley where she actually responded, calling him scum on stage, which that's actually pretty surprising. I don't know if I've ever heard that one on a Republican debate stage before, but he went for people. He asked the questions. He said the things. That is what we need to be doing. And I think that's what we need to get a lot of our fellow conservatives to understand. So as we are looking at the playing field of 2023, the RFK polling, Vivek's performance at the debate stage last night, this shows that there is a return to independence. There's a return to Americanism, not party first. There is a return to liberty, not party identification, most of all. And I think that is something we're going to have to push the envelope on, push the issue on, and get people to understand just what the battle is that we are fighting and facing right now. And it's not that we're throwing aside issues that are of grave importance, like protecting marriage and defending the traditional value of the family, the traditional nuclear family unit, defending the pro-life position here in America. Those are important things, but we are facing an enemy that's not just trying to get the opposite of what those policy positions are for us done. We're facing an enemy that is trying to squelch out our very civil liberties and rights and responsibilities and privileges and outlets to be able to have those discussions, to speak freely, to have the debate. Those things are disappearing because we are losing the system, the free soil in which all of these things can be cultivated. And we have to protect that and preserve that first. That has to be dealt with. Otherwise, we lose the platform to have a discussion about any of the rest of these values that are incredibly important to our country, that are incredibly important to our heritage and to our future. So that is, I think, our goal. I think that's what we are most importantly needing to look at as conservatives, as grassroots-minded conservatives. And I'd like to encourage you all today, that's the discussion we need to be moving people forward to have in our spheres of influence, family, friends, coworkers. Go out and make sure that people understand this field of where we are, that the main battle set up now isn't really conservative versus liberal. It is we the people versus they the powerful. I think that's where we are. I think that's important. And that's the point that I wanted to lay down today. I've got some good resources I want to put down. I know we quoted some founding fathers and played some videos from Vivek Ramaswamy. There was a very interesting day today, bouncing back and forth. But this is where we are. Let me read through. So we've got we got a Rumble chat here that's going faster than I can read through as we flip through. Choice Not an Echo. Let me encourage you to go and get a copy of that book. It's incredibly important. I think that it sets up very well this battle that we are dealing with now, as Phyllis described over and over and over again, every 4 years, how the Republican Party kingmakers try to select their own nominee rather than let the actual primary nomination and election process play out. We're seeing that now on a grand scale of the entire federal government and state governments as well. That's where we are. And she laid down a really good blueprint of understanding and fighting back against it. Let me see here. The commies have rigged the entire game. It's true. It's true. That's why we have to step outside the system. And this is why we're going to talk about that next week. We're going to talk about stepping outside the system and where our effectiveness actually is, what is or isn't effective. Talk about some of the practicalities of what we do to get outside of this. So I think that we'll have a good discussion next week. Mason will be back on top. He'll be back up to snuff, and we'll get into it. Great with the technology. It's hard to do. Thank you. We're going to do some more of that. I want to pull some more of that in here because I'd like to make sure that we're not just talking about stuff. We're showing it to you so that we can all experience this and respond and react, because down here in the chat, you all have the ability to hop in and interact with us. I want to make sure that we provide that opportunity to all interact on the same things as it's going here. So yeah, that's it. That's good. Send an email. I see a lot of good things going on here. There is change needed. There is change needed in the system itself. We are losing the system of freedom. I think that's why this election, and we always talk about how this upcoming election is the most important election. I feel like it always gets said that way. In this regard, it is actually true. Each and every election cycle that passes us, we lose just a little bit that we may never get back, in terms of our freedom and our ability to participate in the system, to speak freely in the public arena, to have access to information and the truth, to have people who are fighting for the truth, who even understand that there is such a thing as the truth, not a truth or my truth or your truth, and that relativism, beating that back. We must protect and preserve the system, or we really don't have many more elections left, because the system itself is gone and rigged and completely under the control of others who make sure that there's no free choices anymore. So that's where we're at. People need to understand that is the debate we need to be having, not this debate from 20 years ago. That is the discussion that conservatives need to understand, and that is the discussion that we need to get everyone in America on board with, to see and understand what's really going on. Not even the left and the right, the conservative, the liberal, but the power hungry, the authoritarians versus freedom. That is the discussion. That's the debate. So I hope that you'll join with me in doing that. I've got some good resources. Go over to phyllisschlafly.com, sign up for that email list. If you haven't already, make sure that you get that resource email from us, including the notifications in future weeks about this. Like I said, we're going to go with some hands-on discussion about just how we participate in the system or step outside the system next week. Mason and I have a lot of good stuff going on. And then also we might want to talk about some specific things when it comes to elections, electoral items in the future. So sound off. Shoot us an email. Ryan@phyllisschlafly.com, info@phyllisschlafly.com. You shoot it to us. It'll get to us. We will definitely take a look at whatever you have. We've got a couple still. Someone sent us a couple suggestions. We still have one of those that I put on the list that we want to talk about in an upcoming week. So chime in, sound off. All of the trite phrases I can say for these things. Let us know your thoughts. And yeah, Mason is sick, by the way. For anyone who wasn't here at the beginning, Mason is under the weather today. His throat was knocking him out of commission. And I told him, rest up, rest your throat, and also don't share. I don't want it. So we made him stay home today, and he didn't even pop on remotely so that he could keep himself getting better. So say a prayer for Mason, for him to get better and for him to feel better. And we'll be back on next week, another Unauthorized Caucus. Thursday, noon, it'll be caucus time. Go sign up for the email list in the meantime. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Thanks for hopping into the chat and being a participant. Thank you for making this program what it is and helping us as we continue to build it and start making some changes and increasing the audience here. These are good discussions we all need to have. Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful